What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's on Kickstarter. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the great, good, and not so good decks that have come to Kickstarter in the past week. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell.
So Steve, I gotta say, there's a pretty good amount of decks that came out this week. We got about 10 new ones, and there's some real bangers in the mix, man.
Yeah, there's a couple that kind of flew under the radar. I didn't even know they were coming out, and they just dropped.
Absolutely agreed. I was surprised by some of the new decks that popped up when I was going through today. I was like, oh, wow. Didn't even know they were coming out with something new. So it's always fun to see some of those that fly under the radar, but it also goes to the main point of, marketing is key for a lot of these Kickstarters.
Yeah, well, let's jump into it.
All right, man, let's check it out. First up this week for our first great deck, we have the Agenda playing cards, Sanguinity and Incertitude. Jeez, could they have picked any harder names there? But
yeah, they probably could have.
probably. I gotta say though, man, the Agenda series is an absolute great series for anyone who hasn't checked them out. I love the white Agenda decks. I think they are a great looking deck of cards. But Flagrant Agenda makes a amazing campaign, so this should be a really good one.
Yeah, their blue edition right there, that the show right there is just, it's pretty hard to get, and it's definitely sought after deck.
Yeah, dude, they're good looking decks. I'm not a huge fan of the green. I think it's a little too light, but otherwise I love these colors that they pick.
Yeah, that purple's bomb.
Yeah. So, dude builds out a great story from the jump, really dives into the idea of how this deck is going to tie into COVID, what this is all about, why are they going with these new colorways. I think it's great to see them touch on that, even though this is an established series. Getting right into it, we see some of the basics here. Primary yellow, gold, green color scheme printed by USPCC, traditional cut and magic finish. I would like to see fulfillment information in that little bit of a features section there, but I do know they are going to be fulfilling themselves. That's usually the way they go. But it would be nice to see that defined there as well.
Yeah.
Getting into it, man. Yeah, look at this. Premium gilded version. And that puck box just looks amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. They really do a good job. Oh, and they're gilding it green. It's nice.
Interesting. Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. I wonder how much they're going to be able to color match the cards to the green. The fact that it's all around green stock, green gilding, that is going to be a very vibrant deck.
It's going to be pretty green.
Yeah. And so we get into another kind of feature way here for the purple deck. Honestly, the one thing I would say too, being that it's two of the same deck stylistically, obviously the decks are different, but because it's very similar, they probably could have consolidated a lot of that down. With that in mind, though, this still isn't an overly long campaign, so I think they did a good job with this.
Dude, that purple.
Yeah, that purple is fresh. And then I love their little travel decks that they come out with as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're great. So the fact of the matter is they're doing what? So 6 decks?
Yeah, looks like it.
They're doing a mini travel deck for the green as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 6 decks.
Actually, it looks like the travel deck might be the purple only. Yeah, so 5 decks, but still, that's a solid campaign. With this, and they still have some of the classics for sale as well, which I think is great. I love that back design. It's kind of like a bordered B back design. It has a really vintage vibe to it, which I like.
Yeah, big stylized pips on the aces.
Yep. And they get into their coins for the Kickstarter. Got some nice little add-ons here. The one thing I would say is just throwing an add-on header here above the coin. See if because they kind of just roll right from the decks into like the classics, which are going to be an add-on. So it'd be helpful to have an add-on section to kind of break that up so people understand, like, oh, we're getting into things that are not tiers themselves.
Right.
And they get a little bit more into the Flagrant Agenda story and how it all started. I really do love the fact that even though they're an established brand, they've put a risks and challenges here. This is a legit, well-built out, well-structured risks and challenges. I think all campaigns, no matter how long you've been doing this, need a risks and challenges because it presents, potential pitfalls and potential hiccups throughout the process that no one can always account for all of them.
Yeah.
What are we looking at price?
What are we looking at price-wise?
Yeah, let's see here. We got 21 shipped. So all things considered with the embossed and foiled tuck box, I'd say that's not a bad deal.
Yeah, we could come in at a couple dollars cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this being a 19 shipped. I think that would be the ideal in my book.
Yeah.
Interesting, too, it looks like they're actually going to have a gold foiled USPCC seal on that, which is kind of cool. And what do we got here for the gilded, too? I'm curious here. 39 shipped for the gilded. So
Nice.
yeah, it's really not a bad deal. Pretty solid price point there. They really did a good
Kind of cool
job.
that you can buy the gilded separately too, you know?
Yes, I do like that fact. A lot of campaigns usually haven't been doing that lately. The one thing I would want to see on this too, and while it's not always a necessity, it doesn't hurt, is stretch goals. So, obviously they're 27 days to go, so they've been in the mix about 3 days here. They're about halfway to their goal, a little bit less. For 5 decks, 26,000 is a reasonable price point, so
Yeah.
especially because the gilded decks are not just a gilded version of the standard. They are, in fact, printing 5 separate decks. That's a relatively low price point. They may even eat a little bit on that, but the stretch goals might actually incentivize people to help get it further, because if you're not hitting your goal based solely on the decks and the add-ons, people might want something a little bit extra that a stretch goal could help deliver there.
Actually, are they the branded and unbranded are the same deck, just different tuck, right?
Let's see.
If that's the case, then they're technically only printing 3 decks. They're
So
printing the mini.
the thing is, the branded are the standard, the non-branded are the gilded, and those are the different card stock. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so they're not doing a split run on it
Gotcha.
yet. They're actually separately designed, well, probably the same deck on a different card stock, but still a completely different print run. So
go up. The other ones are white stock. Yeah.
Yep. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out, but good luck to them on this one. I'm excited to see how well this campaign does, because again, I love some of their older decks.
Yeah. Good luck.
Next up for this week's good campaign, we have the Swingin' 60s playing cards, which, heck of a title right there for sure. Be interesting to see what this deck is all about. But I do have to say, jumping right into it, they do a great job. Jessica here does a great job breaking into a story. One groovy idea. Talks about not only the cards themselves, but how it all got started. This picture is hilarious, but talk about a great way to break the ice and tie people into your personality right there. Like, I think that's awesome. Goes right into the story. Shows off some of the pictures of the cards, which obviously you can tell these are renders here. They look really good, though. Very artistically done. To me, this is a very artistic deck, which I think is very cool. And it looks like the deck itself is actually still in progress, which that's perfectly fine. As a first-time creator, sometimes that can be a little bit of a roadblock to funding. But I do think that this artwork is going to draw in a solid crowd.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Sure, great work.
A couple things that I would mention, too, with this is it looks like there's not a ton of pictures of the cards themselves, and that may be because the deck is still in progress.
Yet.
But it would be something where, like, I would be very proactive in including the imagery as it becomes available, because the more of the deck you can show off, the more people are going to want to see it. I think the style stands true throughout the courts we can see there, but the actual, like, artwork itself varies so much that I'd be curious to see what the rest of the deck really looks like. The other thing
like the back design.
yeah,
I mean,
the back, yeah, is a huge one. The other thing,
I mean, that's huge.
I'm seeing here too is it looks like all of these started off as like just aces that they threw on there. I'd be curious to see like what the rest of the deck is going to look like. You've clearly changed the pip and indice color for the traditional red suits to green. Cool. Are the black ones still going to be black? Like, there's a lot of questions that I think a collector would be curious about with this.
Yeah, and how much are we looking at?
Price point wise, we are looking at $30 shipped. So the one thing I will say is it looks like they're printing with a smaller printer local to their area in Orlando, Florida. That may have something to do with raising the price on this, but at the same time, like, if you are going to have a higher than normal price point, one of the great things to do about it is talk about how much your print run is going to be. If you come out and say, hey, we're looking to only print 200 decks, then to me, I understand why it's a much more expensive deck, because you're not printing at a run where your cost comes down significantly. You know, but if you're looking to do potentially 1,000 decks, $30 is very expensive. Also, is that something you've considered? I think being a first-time creator with a high price point, showing that you've considered your print run more than, hey, we're going to print how many we get, it shows thought has gone into creation of the campaign. So I think some of the big things here, you mentioned the printer. I'm curious who's going to be fulfilling, but also show more pictures, show the progress, continue updating this campaign. The other thing to consider too is we're only a day in, but I would be making sure, and you've already funded, I don't see an update. Like,
yeah, keep people updated, let them know you're excited, thank you, you know, just different things to kind of keep them excited. I think that's important, you know. And like if you look in the tiers, she actually gives, I believe, stickers and a pin,
Yep.
correct? So I mean, let's see pictures of those. That'll obviously, get people to back more as well.
Absolutely. And the other thing to consider too is with the tiers, and this is something we always push, you're selling decks, stick to decks. The one way you may be able to reduce that $30 price point depending on your cost is make the stickers and the pins add-ons instead of being included with it. That way people may be more likely to buy a deck if it's $20 shift because they're not getting the stickers and the pins. Allow...
Yeah, because I don't care about stickers or pins.
Exactly. And if it prices me out of an area where I'm feeling uncomfortable because it's $30 a deck versus $20 a deck, that very well could swing someone into purchasing more on this. 40 backers, I think this is a very artistic deck and could have a lot of momentum behind it, but those price points and those key things like what do all the aspects of the deck look like are going to be what really sells it. So congratulations on funding for your first deck. I'm excited to see this get made, but hopefully before the campaign ends you continue to push and show the rest of the progress throughout the deck.
Tyler, that deck is groovy.
It is quite groovy, Steve. So and good luck to Jessica on this. Next up we have this week's Need Help deck, which is the Anywhere Worldwide Chinese Chessboard playing card. I'll be honest, I love the parody aspect of this deck. I think it's really funny. This isn't a knock on them for needing help because of the subject matter of the deck. I love the idea of the deck.
Dude, I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually Tobias Levin and Noel Heath
that would be
actually talking themselves. I wouldn't even be surprised.
That would be funny. I mean, so there's a couple things that stand out to me as to why this needs help, though. First and foremost, the goal on this deck is way too low for anything of a sustainable print run. So if you're looking at 1,000 decks, 3472 is barely going to cover print plus shipping. It might even barely cover print, all things considered. So
yeah, it would probably hit print if it's 1,000 decks.
Yeah, but it would be a really tight squeeze. So you're now looking at how to ship these out, and shipping usually costs about as much as the decks themselves. So in reality, this being closer to maybe a $7,000 to $10,000 goal for a single deck would be a more reasonable price range there, and make sure that you're not eating cost on shipping. With that in mind, I love the way they're vibing with this. I would have worked out cleaning up a little bit of the white space on it just because there is a lot of white space before you even get to too much of the campaign. But love seeing the images here. I love the story behind it. It's really kind of...
I wouldn't be surprised, like Hansen Chen is printing it. I wouldn't be surprised if Hansen is putting this deck out.
Sure.
Because he's known to have...
Any other guesses you have for who's printing this deck,
decks.
Steve? Huh? Any other guesses you have for who's printing this deck? So no, the one thing I would say throughout this campaign that I really like too is the air of levity throughout. Who can tell me which playing cards aren't included the things above? Like, it's funny, like the entire concept of the campaign itself is kind of lighthearted and jokey. I go both ways on that in the sense of that I think that's a risk to take on a Kickstarter, but if you know your audience, I think that's a perfectly acceptable risk to take. With that in mind, the thing that actually stands out the most to me on this is I actually want to see a little bit more of the deck than just the back design and the couple cards that they show off. They do a decent job with it, but there's a lot of filler between it. The other thing that stands out too is all of the uppercase text is just like abrasive.
Yelling at me.
It doesn't necessarily have to all be capitalized. I don't know if you're yelling throughout this whole campaign or what, but it actually makes it harder to read. And from a legibility point of view, you want this to be as easy to read as possible and flow as well as possible. I do dig the campaign though. I think it's really an interesting parody take on all of this. So we'll print. The other thing I will say too, and is if English is not your first language in a campaign, that is perfectly fine, but I would say reach out to people who you feel comfortable sharing with, who can take a look through, because there are some like tense issues with this. Like, we will print it in Taiwan. We will be printing, again, like simple grammatical stuff, but it does make a difference when you're trying to sell something. I think ultimately it might actually make a lot more people more comfortable, considering the troll aspect of it and the company being named TrollDecks. You want people to feel comfortable that this is a legitimate venture. It's not all just a big kind of troll. So not to say that, I wouldn't put a beware on this or anything. I think this is a legit campaign. Right. But all of these things...
If you look right there, it says, if we can afford, we may change to USPCC. They're comparable in pricing, so that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
Hansen Chen and USPCC are comparable.
Yeah. So the other thing I would say too is a much more comprehensive risks and challenges section for a first-time creator. Price point wise on this, we're looking at 27 shipped. So that is also another big issue on this one. And a lot of times we've seen Hansen Chen shipping be expensive. So all the shipping will be handled by Hansen Chen. That should not be in a risk and challenges section there on the left. It should be its own dedicated section. I'd love to see features in this, but that $11 US for shipping is way too high. Ultimately, this should be something that you're paying Hansen Chen to maybe ship the Gamblers or somewhere more local to the US to make that more reasonable, because 27, this is a $20 deck shipped maximum. So all things considered,
that's why there's not that many backers on it.
Yeah, I mean, $27 is just a little bit too high of a price point. This could be significantly higher considering how much visibility the non-parody version of anyone worldwide has. You may be able to leverage that significantly on this parody version for much more backing if the price point was more reasonable. So something to consider. Again, kudos on the subject matter, kudos on the deck itself. It is funny as heck, and I'm excited to see how this plays out. But definitely touch on some of those things to make the campaign a little stronger, and good luck. Let's check out some of the other new fun decks this week. For another great campaign, we have the Eye of the Ocean from Lorenzo at Stockholm 17. Again, this should be no shock to anyone. 8 created, and that's just on this account. Lorenzo has created more than 12 decks across Kickstarter, knows exactly what he's doing with this stuff, and really puts this together in a beautiful way. He has a killer price point on this, great stretch goals, great add-ons, talks about fulfillment, printing, and just, it is a good-looking deck. His story is on point, too. So, good luck to Lorenzo on this one. He's already quickly approaching, what, 400% on this? Yeah, which is awesome. So excited to see. And if anyone's curious about any of the behind-the-scenes stuff, make sure to go over there and click the live we did with him yesterday. Man, it's been a while since I had to point in either direction. I'm not getting it right. You're going the wrong direction, too. It's going to be like right over...
Oh, it's going to be probably right here.
No, it's going to be like right over your other side of your head.
Oh, on there?
Yeah, there you go. So... With that said, good luck to Lorenzo. You've crushed it with this one, man. Next up for another great deck this week, we have the Cartomancer Duality playing cards from Elaine Benoit. So I'm excited for this deck. We're actually going to be having Elaine on the show next Saturday to chat about this deck, the behind-the-scenes look, so make sure to tune in for that. This is actually a partial reprint and a redesign of an old deck here. So he's reprinting the original, which is the Clarity deck, and then he's bringing the Shadow deck to the scene, which is nice little, like it's called Duality there. You see the Angel and the Devil. Awesome put together campaign, some really great visuals into the work itself. Talks about the printer, the shipping. The one thing I would like to see is just a feature section up top to kind of hammer all that out from the jump. But otherwise, this is a great campaign. Looking at $20 shipped. I'd say 18 to 20 is probably the right price point on this, but $20 in free shipping, spot on.
Yeah, I mean, that Clarity deck is impossible to find. So
yeah. So for anyone who's been looking forward, this is your chance to jump on it. And next up for another good deck this week, we have the Luna deck by Farah A. So I have to say, this is actually a really cool campaign, relatively low goal, but again, that may just be due to how much they're looking to print. The one thing that stands out to me as a price point concern on this one is $15 a deck, $23 a deck shipped. Apologies there. $15 for the deck though, but $23 a deck shipped for a foiled deck printed in Denmark. So there's several things that stand out to me about this one. First off, as the creator, you want to make sure your price point's actually going to fit for whatever a foiled deck shipped is going to be with a smaller printer. At a print run that's less than 1,000, a foiled deck can be pricey. Also, the quality can suffer depending on who you're using. So for this to be a new campaign from a new creator in the community, they talk about they're comfortable with the stock, but to me, there's some credential issues there. I do think this campaign could really use a little bit of a boost in discussing the printer, in discussing who's going to be fulfilling, and ultimately, you know, I think otherwise they did a good job on it. This is a pretty middle ground, good campaign here. I'm excited to see how this plays out.
Luck.
Okay, good luck. Next up for another good deck this week, we have the Glazed Dark Skies limited edition linen playing cards from Tim Olinger. Tim has done, obviously 33 created here, has done a lot of campaigns,
Wow.
all similar vein with them, usually prints with MPC and fulfills with MPC. I do know this campaign has the similar information there, printing with MPC. If you like his art style, this is a phenomenal deck, and I think all things considered, let's see what we got here price-wise. The price point on this deck is a little bit high, which makes it a little bit less than great for me. 24 shipped, smaller print run in theory, but I do think that this could be a $18 deck, $20 deck shipped. It would probably do a little bit better if you like the artwork style. So, good luck, Tim.
Good luck.
Let's see what we have for a needs help deck this week. We have the Impression of Numbers playing cards. Jumping right into this one, again, the goal stands out to me as being a little bit low, but there isn't that much, like, information in this campaign. They relied heavily on the images, but the textual side of this is very minimal. It doesn't tell much of a story other than in this first little paragraph right here. Build out the story if you're really trying to draw people into the idea of numbers. Numbers have so much power. There's such a story that could be told here. With that in mind, printer and fulfillment also would be a necessity here, as well as any sort of features section and add-ons and stretch goals. You know, I think there's a lot to this that it's just kind of missing, and we're looking at a $29 shipped point on this price point wise.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's just a little pricey for what this is, especially not knowing who's printing it. So with all of that in mind, good luck, but this may need to go back to the drawing board. Another needs help this week is the Fig 23, The Wizard of Oz Flipbook Animation Playing Cards by TrollDecks. You know, we've seen them do Alice in Wonderland flipbook decks in the past. That being said, though, I actually kind of expected a little bit more from TrollDecks on this one, just because they have built out campaigns in the past. This is probably one of the shortest campaigns we've seen in a while. Talks about their previous decks, talks about the story a little bit. Their price point really isn't even too bad either, shipped at $17. But who's going to be printing? Who's going to be fulfilling? Yeah, they talk about fulfillment. Let's see.
USPC.
So UPS.
UPSC?
UPSC, which is supposed to be USPS. So they're talking about self-fulfilling with USPS. But there's no talk about who the printer's going to be. I'm going to be using a manufacturing company that produces cards of quality many collectors do not favor. So, like, to me, this is an interesting campaign, because ultimately this is a deck you're printing for yourself, not for other people. And with that in mind, like, who's going to be printing?
It says MPC.
Oh, in the
under the tier.
So, and yeah, that's the thing. Like, tiers are not meant for that. Tiers are meant to discuss the individuality of the tier itself. So that being said,
interesting.
Talking about fulfillment and printing should not be in your risks and challenges. They should be in their own separate sections. Throw in a features. Your risks and challenges should talk about things that may hinder or prevent the campaign from actually coming to fulfillment. Those are the things you want to have in risks and challenges. You know, I would like to. I like the look of this deck. I'd be curious to see what ultimately happens with this. I mean, it's already close to funding, but I think there's probably so much more potential for this deck than 92 backers. So good luck.
Good luck.
Next up for another needs help this deck. Next up for another needs help deck this week, we have the X Minimalist Playing Cards. Interestingly enough, this is a style that I feel like we've seen in the past, and I haven't looked at what else Jeremy Hills has done. Galleria playing cards, so second campaign attempt here. Good luck to him on it. But this is actually, it reminds me very much of some minimalist decks we've seen in the past. Off the jump.
Yeah, recently too. There was one recently that was like that.
Absolutely. And off the jump, the one thing that stands out to me, it's always risky when you minimalize the pips and don't make them easily identifiable as spades versus hearts. Like, I'm making a big assumption here to assume that a black triangle is a spade.
Yeah,
but you don't know, and that's the thing you have to consider here, because people do change the colors all the time. All things considered, the clubs and the diamonds, like, yeah, they're not too bad looking, but interesting back design on it.
It's an X.
It's an X. You know what else it is? It's the exact same back design of the
Nihilism.
The tuck.
Nihilism.
Well, for Nihilism, it's also the same design as the tuck for the pocket aces. Like, this is a design we're seeing a lot recently, and in the past, it's not really a creative design per se. The front is the real showcase for me on this one. Printed by NPC, great that you have that information there. But again, being your first real campaign, you need more pictures of the cards. You need more information about the story. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and sell this campaign. Your risks and challenges here should be 3 paragraphs. No question about it. You're a first-time creator. You haven't gone through this process. What are the risks and challenges personally to you in order to ensure that your backers get what they're being promised here? There's a lot of detail that needs to go to that. And at $26 a deck for a minimalist deck, it should have a minimalist price point as well. So,
Yes.
good luck.
Very minimal.
Good luck. And Steve, I don't know, man. It was a rough week this week. What are you planning on backing?
Agenda and Eye of the Ocean. That's it.
All right, fair enough.
Unfortunately, I put way too much money into Eye of the Ocean, so I'm leaving Agenda alone.
There you go. Dude, no, both of those are definitely winners for me on my end. I'd really be curious to see the Luna deck as well. I actually like the artwork and I like the styling to it, but I'd rather see it from a established printer than a unnamed Danish company. Not to say that those the printer in Denmark may not be amazing, but I would really like to see it coming from someone else with foil and everything on it, because we've seen some butcher jobs with foil from small print houses. So
yeah, I don't trust any of those.
yeah, it's a risky maneuver there, and I think when you're really focusing on the art, it's easy to lose sight that the card quality itself matters as well. So
yeah, I want to make sure that the foil is going to stick on the card.
Yes, you know? Yes, and that's the worst when you see the cards foil and peeling up. That breaks my heart every single time. But
yeah.
Guys, let us know in the comments down below what you would be backing this week, and let's check out what this week's fun campaigns are, man. I'm pumped for this one. I actually have to say, I don't think that this week's fun campaigns, it was a little sparse, you know? I kind of dug through. I think we both went a little bit mellow with it, a little bit laid back. But
yeah, mine's kind of fun. Yours is not so much fun.
You know, it's fuck you too. So, but no, this week it'll be interesting. I mean, I think that all things considered, they should be some interesting campaigns here. So let's see what we got. First up,
yours goes with one of your past ones, so at least you're like cohesive in your choices.
Sure. I don't really think about that when I pick these. I just pick what catches my eye for the week. So I'm not you. I'm not fixated on light bulbs. So.
Light bulbs and waterfalls.
There you go. I mean, I can't front you on the water features. I would love a water feature in my house. But for this week's first fun campaign, I picked the Brew Reusable Coffee Cup for coffee lovers. So I have to say, I think everyone has a multitude of travel mugs in their house. I know I throw out travel mugs on a regular basis, but one of the big things that stood out to me about this brew cup was the fact that it's actually ceramic lined interior wise. So it still has all the same insulation as your favorite metal mugs, but it doesn't take the flavor from the metal mug into your coffee. Anyone who knows with really highly acidic beverages, they can leach the flavor of the cup into the beverage itself. So to see a coffee cup that is fully ceramic coated but also fully insulated is actually pretty cool. Price points a little higher than what I would usually spend for a travel mug, but it's actually outside of the realm of some of the things people pay for like Yeti mugs in this. So $24 gets you a brew cup, and they come in multiple sizes, which I think isn't too bad. They really dive into the cup itself and everything that goes into it. They do a nice little breakout here. They talk about the materials. That's the one thing I do love about some of these campaigns outside of playing card Kickstarters is the level of detail they go into is above and beyond what we see on playing cards. You know, and maybe it's just by nature of how much you can talk about a playing card, but I really think that being able to see how all of this gets broken down, building out this story, most of these highly successful campaigns are long, but they're also very deep and very much a sales pitch. You know, this is more than just a coffee mug. It's about not contributing to all this waste we see here. So, definitely cool. Yeah, man. I like the little wine cup there. Oh, I mean, it's definitely a coffee mug, but you could throw wine in it too if you wanted. Travel wine.
You could throw soda in it if you want.
Sure, right? There you go. So, and for Steve's fun campaign this week, we have the Torshn puzzle. Improve brain health and challenge yourself. Steve's getting up there in age, so brain health is very important these days.
That's right, man. Don't take that away from me.
Oh my god, I love it.
Dude, 257 G's, man.
Sure.
People are staying smart with this thing.
It's an interesting
Super
puzzle.
cool. Obviously, puzzles are definitely big right now. A lot of people are fidgeting with puzzles and doing them on YouTube and different things like that. And this is just kind of gives me that Rubik's Cube vibe with the colors and, kind of like the twisting motions. It does only twist in 2 different spots, but, and it shows that it can be done by kids, adults, and, whatever. It doesn't even matter. But, it is a little pricey, I think.
Yeah. Looking
for
at
my liking.
$39.
Yeah, I'd like to see it around 1995, for something like that.
I mean, all considered though, it's moving parts with aluminum and glass. Like, cost-wise, it's probably highly precision, like machining for the aluminum to actually move the way you want it to.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gonna hand it to a 12-year-old kid. I don't know if I wanna. I don't know. I mean, I like it. I mean, I like it. I dig it. I think it's really cool. I definitely like to see it and see the motion of it and see how smooth it moves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I dig it.
It really
There's
is.
your 3D printer, bro.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. I like this concept. Dude,
You can print it yourself.
yeah, there you go. It wouldn't be nice aluminum and glass, but it would be some resin there. Probably wouldn't move. So,
Right?
dude, and I love the fact, like I said, I love the fact that these campaigns that are really highly successful, you can see lengthwise, they build a lot of a story here. It's not, they include timelines. They talk about the creators, about the risks and challenges. I mean, look at this. Risks and challenges is really built out, and they actually say production and logistics. They break down into what those risks and challenges are. I really hope playing cards starts to evolve beyond the very small niche that we've created here and realize that to become even more successful in Kickstarter, we need to adopt a lot of these new methodologies that Kickstarter puts in place,
Yeah, they have a campaign promoter, so that probably helps with that 4,500 backers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of backers, dude. People do love puzzles, though. No surprise there. So, everyone watching, what would you back this week? Not even just playing cards. Would you back the Torshn puzzle? Would you back the Brew Cup? Would you back anything else out there? Let us know in the comments below. We're always curious to hear what you guys are planning on backing this week. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of What's on Kickstarter.